our guests for today are Richard and Vanessa from the Regent Park School of Music in Toronto. And I'm going to ask them to join us and we'll give them a chance to introduce themselves.
Hi, good morning.
Hey. Morning.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful. We're happy to be with you. Thank you for hosting us.
So maybe you could each tell us what you do at Regent Park School of Music, and then we'll learn a little bit more about the programming that you offer.
You want me to go first, Richard? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Vanessa. I am the program manager for our Jane and Finch site of Regent Park School of Music. So we've been in the Jane and Finch neighborhood for quite a while, but we're building up that location quite a bit and have done so in the last many years, few years. And so really excited to be here to share some of the insights about what we've been doing to kind of adapt and pivot during COVID. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm Richard Marsella. I'm the executive director at the school and been with the organization for just over 10 years now. And it's just a real pleasure to be a part of the story of the Regent Park School of Music. And we're really excited to share that with you all here today. So thanks again for hosting.
That's awesome. Thank you for joining us again. Maybe we can take a few minutes. If you guys could just walk us through what Regent Park School of Music does, maybe more about the communities and the work you're doing with the communities.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So I'll get that PowerPoint up, okay, Richard, and then we can get
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the school started about 20 years ago, Cyril, and so we began in 1999 offering subsidized music lessons in the Regent Park neighborhood. To about 71 kids in a church basement. Pretty grassroots the way it started. And now we're reaching just over 1,000 kids across the city of Toronto. So that's Regent Park, Jane and Finch. We're also working with Wandering Spirit School, formerly known as First Nation School Toronto. We reach about 150 kids there. So it's after school lessons in local schools across Jane and Finch. And we've been there for over 10 years now as well. So our roots are firmly planted in these two neighborhoods. And one of the core pillars of what we do is offering access, right? So that's really, I think, a priority for us is to give access to kids in those neighborhoods to very affordable. In the year ahead, it'll actually be at no cost, music lessons, music education. And how that access looks in the midst of a global health pandemic that we're in is part of what we're here to share with you today. It's been a very interesting 3 months for all of us, or since March really, in terms of how we've had to adapt what we do to be as relevant as we can in the lives of the kids that we're reaching. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
I'll talk a little bit about our program model. We're unique as a music school, right? Because we believe musical and social development are of equal importance. So that's kind of the model of community music in general. We offer students an opportunity to connect with other young people and to build strong relationships while learning musical skills. And our tagline is helping kids thrive through music. So it's really making that connection, making new friends through music, right? And building community through music. You see that our program model is outlined in this slide. It gives you an overview of like the journey of our kids. We really try to think of a long-term relationship with our students from the age of 3 with our early childhood music programming all the way to 18. And, you know, we're not, as I said, we're not building them up just as young musicians, but it's also community leaders, right? And what that means. So there are many ways into how we develop the social side of our students and build up upon that leadership.
Just a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So 2 decades, like really amazing. I can't believe like 1999 is like 2 decades away. Has this evolved a great deal over those 20 so years? I see like case management and parent engagement are like integral through all of it. And you're saying like this, the wraparound supports is something that's really a key part of the program. Has that always been the case, or has there been some evolution?
Absolute evolution. I think every year, I mean, the thing is never perfect, right? So we're constantly refining to the point, and with that in the foreground of being as meaningful to our kids as possible and relevant in their lives. So yeah, these things like case management, going a lot deeper if a student needs that kind of support. We want to be able to, and without being able to do all of it, right? We're not the full solution in a child's life and development, but we certainly want to go as far as we can with helping our kids, thrive through music, as our tagline says, right? It's really kind of, and getting better, I think, at prescribing, like, how can we really help this one student? And it boils down to that, this one student, because we're learning as we go, right? I think our strength when we started the program was that we were a bunch of spirited music educators that came to a table and wanted to make change in the community. Now, as we live through this, it's like, oh, with a side order of social work, right? And we're not really equipped on that end. So it's like, how do we develop through professional development, et cetera, the most robust program to affect change?
Great, thanks.
All right, so I just quickly was going to talk about our program objectives. So the main things that we're doing is we're removing the financial barrier to music education. So in previous years, we have charged fees. They're nominal for most people. And we have an annual fee for our programs, but it has been, last year it was $50 for a year of music lessons, which included their instrument, all of those extras that they got as being part of the program. So if they needed t-shirts for something, if they needed a bus for an outing, if they needed food for an event, all their recitals, all their performances, it can include things as much as also participating in Royal Conservatory exams, if that's what the student is into. So trying to do that was really important to us. As Richard mentioned, for this year, we're actually not charging any fees, which is, we just wanted to meet families where they were and acknowledge that even $50 per child per year could be something challenging in this challenging time. Richard touched a lot on the supporting musical and social development of students, but that's one of our core principles. We are working on we do have a curriculum that we use, and we've really bolstered the social side of the curriculum in the last few months, because we want it to be more integral to what we do and also more well-defined, so that the music teachers that we work with have a really good template and a model to make that happen. And then the last thing is meeting students where they are. So I like to think of this as every young person is different. Every young person has a different journey with us. I mentioned like Royal Conservatory exams. That's not for every student. It's for some very, maybe academically minded, very, they want to pursue a career in music. They want to have a really professional music learning experience, but that's not what works for everybody. A lot of the students need a social connection through music. And this is the way they get their connection. This is their safe space after school or on the weekend. This is where they make friends. So it's a community for a lot of people. So we try and tailor to what makes sense for the young people that we're working with. And then just quickly, here are our mission, vision, and values. Yeah, and the big things to highlight from this are that we want it to be a community, and we want to help underserved communities who may not have access to high quality music education or arts programming to have this opportunity. And then empowering and supporting and celebrating youth from all different entry points into our program. making sure we're innovative and impactful, and respecting and including partners and leading with integrity in the communities we work with. So that's a quick overview of what we were going to share. So I'll stop my screen share.
So then meeting students where they are, in terms of, the last few months, whether folks are sheltering in place or, where they might be emotionally during, a very uncertain and challenging time. How have you been able to shift the ways in which you're able to deliver your programming?
Well, I think one of the things that we learned, we had a fire in one of our spaces in Regent Park 2 years ago. And it, I think, helped us prepare for, a somewhat chaotic situation that we learned a lot from that situation. We've moved a lot of we're in the cloud now. So technically we had a few things on the back end that were able to help our administrative team function. But when it came to shutting down our school from March until, now, we had to develop other strategies there to, I think, remain more connected with our students. This is kind of unprecedented for us. And so some of the learning from that fire in Regent Park that we had certainly carried over to this. We were able to reflect on that in the past tense, thankfully, and look on it and say, what did we learn from this? How are we a stronger organization from that fire? We have since moving into what is a quickly, this thing moves faster than we can keep up with it with the pandemic. But we early on said we need to prioritize health. And that goes for our health in the administration, the health of our faculty, the health of notably of our students and family and their families, right? So the community at large. And what does that mean for an organization like ours in order to do that? So that was one thing that we are continuously checking on. And so there's some strategies that we've been taking there that I think have been wise. But yeah, really it's, I'll leave it there for now, but it's been really having to pivot and move as quickly as this thing is unfolding globally. So not easy.
Yeah, it was just quickly to add to what Richard's saying is we did have to say, okay, the programs are on pause. We want to do what we're going to do. We want to make the next step intentionally. We don't want to just jump into programming, online programming. I know lots of organizations, we know lots of organizations that did that and it worked really well for them. But we wanted to do it right and make sure it was serving the young people in the best way possible, make sure we had training for staff so that could happen effectively, make sure our policies reflected that effectively. And we did it in the safest way possible, knowing that some of the communities we're working with and the young people and families we're working with, this is going to be a particularly challenging time for them. And so just like Richard said, trying to connect with families and keep that communication open. We weren't doing music programs for a few weeks or a month or so. And we didn't do synchronous or live programs at all until we tried some summer pilots, so we did kind of take it pretty cautiously and pretty slowly. And I think it worked for us. I don't think that's the right path for everybody maybe, but for us, it was the right thing to do. Yeah.
And just to follow up on that, supporting our faculty, we worked hard from early in March to say, can we keep our entire faculty paid until the end of June? And so we worked towards making that happen. And that was like a lot of so there's just been a lot of learning. Our board of directors, like everybody has stepped up. We've been working around the clock. I just think it's just been really interesting in terms of the workload itself. We're all able to function remotely, but I think trying to get it right, and we don't even know, like I said with the fire, the learnings that we did 2 years ago, we're able to reflect on it because the fire had been solved. We put it out, we rebuilt the building, and it's a thing of the past. This one isn't, right? So we're kind of learning and reflecting on it in real time. And what that means is, yeah, like getting our faculty paid and then on to the next thing, right? So the next thing looks like, okay, now, and everyone knows this, how do we get back with a safe return plan that makes the most sense for our specific communities, and grappling with that. So it's really trying to stay ahead of it. And if we have our health and it remains, knock on wood, that is something that we will continue to do, right? It's just also being mindful of that. So like, we're all excellent planners, but at the end of the day, this thing is a global health pandemic. And that's something that, as a music educator, I'm going to say I have no experience in. So coming clean on that one, right? And all of us are kind of collaborating as best as we can to put the best plan forward.
How did you stay connected and relevant to families, while also, I imagine, as many youth workers have had to become being resource navigators, which is not necessarily a role that you would have needed to occupy in the past for young people and families with whom you work?
Well, this was something we took some time to kind of figure out. But first off, we started doing weekly email blasts to families. That wasn't something we had done before, but even just a check-in that said, hey, we're thinking about you. This is our recent update. This is what's happening with us, just to give people an entry point, and also saying always at the bottom of that email message, contact us if you have questions. We'll help you. We'll support you as best as we can. And then part of our strategy was we had a committee of folks who took on calling every single family that we've got who was registered in this previous year. And so it was quite a daunting task. I can't remember how many families we have, but it's, 500-600, something, quite a large number. So these folks from the board and then a couple other staff members took that on, and they called everybody. We didn't reach everybody successfully, but it was pretty good. And we were saying to them, hey, this is the status of what's happening, but also we care about you. We hope you're okay. If there's anything we can do, let us know. So we did 2 rounds of those calls, and we learned from the first one that there were a lot of questions about, I don't know when my food bank is open, or I don't know how to navigate this resource. Can you help me connect to this? A lot of it was about, their music learning and experience with us, but not everything. A lot of it was sort of some of those other social needs that were coming up, or health needs. And so we tried to use our connections with, the Black Creek Community Health Center, the St. Mike's folks that are near the community in Regent Park, and other community agencies we were aware of, to sort of connect the dots for folks as much as we could. Also acknowledging that that's not our area of expertise, right? We did what we could and tried to pass it on to the right person for those people so they wouldn't feel isolated. They could ask us the question and we'll do our best to get them connected. And I think it worked sometimes. I don't think it was a perfect system, but I think it worked. And then other things we did were trying to get the families connected with us as well, and the students connected with us as well, even if we weren't doing some of those live programs. So we developed an online engagement plan, and the online engagement plan included, how do we share stuff on social media? How do we get resources out through social media? So that was one thing. So some of those social health things that we typically wouldn't have shared on our social, but thought were important at this time. And then we also had our music teachers, we asked them to start sharing any music related resources. So if they found like a cool tour of a music museum that they wanted to share, or they learned about the Royal Opera Company and wanted to share a live stream of that, we could then have their knowledge and intuition shared through our social media. And then we also asked our music teachers, our faculty, to if they wanted to, they could create their own videos. So if you want to teach the students what a X instrument is, you can share this video, develop a video, and we'll share that. And we gave them a little bit of training and some parameters and guidelines around that, but tried to get them just sharing some resources. And so we had lots of video content coming out. Some was longer than others, and tried to gear it to all different ages. And so we were putting out, multiple resources a day. We had staff dedicated to it, and it was working pretty well. And then the last thing that we did was trying to leverage our, we have a database and staff portal and parent portal system, and trying to leverage that to connect the families with their music teacher. Because it's all well and good to connect to us, the administrators and the management of the organization, but really the kids were missing their teachers and missing their fellow students. So how could we bridge the gap a little bit on that? And so we found a way and gave some training about how teachers could do that. So wasn't super successful for every student, but worked for some, right? And was a good way for them to start reconnecting and communicating again when they hadn't maybe had that opportunity in a little while, right? Someone they maybe have been taking music lessons with for years, who's been a big part of their life. So those were the main things that we did to try and stay connected and stay relevant to the families.
Within the span of like 2 weeks, we suddenly found ourselves running a television station, right? Just trying to, we hadn't been doing a lot of online. We tried, one of our students broke a leg right prior to the pandemic, and we tried running a Skype lesson, and it didn't work well. And that was literally our only online teaching experience. So we quickly had to, move things in this direction to try to remain connected.
Amazing. There's a question that we have from somebody that is attending, Tanika, and it's right in line with kind of what we're talking about in terms of coming up with these great solutions. They're wondering if you were doing that through collaboration with other organizations, or was your process for coming up with these approaches to responding to the pandemic all internal? What did that look like?
I would say it's been quite collaborative. We've noticed two things with that, Tanika. One is that we are strongly connected with all of the community music schools in the city of Toronto. So that's Sistema Toronto, that's Dixon Hall, that's University Settlement House, etc. So we quickly got on the horn with them and said, what are you doing? And it very much felt like it was mirroring our approach, give or take. And then we have relationships with Sarah McLaughlin School of Music out in BC. All of a sudden, all the world becomes a village, right? With this, everybody is faced with the same problem. And how are you dealing with it? So learning the similarities, learning where people were comfortable flexing their policies, stances versus what we were comfortable with. No one knows if they're making the right decisions. In North America, we're part of the Berkeley Community Music School Network, connecting with folks in New Orleans and Phoenix, having discussions with a lot more people, learning, but at the end of the day, the decisions and the safe return plan and all of it, I feel are very siloed out to your specific 3,000 square foot space in Regent Park, our space out of an alternative high school in Jane and Finch. How are we going to open those doors? One student, right? One violin student who needs a string replaced. Ain't no community music school in Phoenix going to help us on how to actually make a curbside pickup safe in our specific case. So we really have had to tailor it down to every door that we're responsible for, every student that we're responsible for, and tailor it that way. So it's felt siloed out in a lot of ways, but in a lot of other ways, we've never connected more with the community at large, trying to get what looks like a best practice.
Very interesting. I'm going to encourage everyone, if you have more questions, please share. We've got 30 minutes left, and this has been a rich conversation so far, so please send in your questions. Vanessa, as you were talking about media and incorporating some technology, I wonder if you can kind of show us, we've spoken a bit about the program. Are there things you can show us from the program in terms of what it looks like every day, or even how you're responding now?
Yeah, sure. So I do have a few videos I can share with everybody. So the first one I'll show is our virtual open mic. So we couldn't have in-person recitals this year. So we did our first virtual open mic a month and a bit ago. And then we're doing one actually this evening. So we're trying to keep our young people, if they want to perform or share their talents with us, and with the community, they can do that, and just a place to connect. And then the second—
just one quick thing. I'll put in the chat, if anybody does want to actually RSVP and get the Zoom link to tonight's 5 o'clock virtual open mic, I'll just put the email that you have to send to RSVP to that. If you want to partake in it, you're all welcome to, okay?
Awesome.
And then the other video that I'll share is, I mentioned that we're creating like more of a library of video resources that we can send to students or could be useful to us, not just through this time, but it's exciting because it could be useful to us going forward. So we have a staff member, one of our music teachers, working on videos that could be shared with younger kids, and it's a really fun one. So I'll just share my screen and I'll show you those videos. Okay. Okay, so this is Nathaniel at the virtual open mic.
I'm a sucker for you. Said your word and I'll go anywhere blindly. I'm a sucker for you. Any road you take, you know that you'll find me. I'm a sucker for all the little things no one knows about you, and you're making the typical me take my typical wound. It's true, I'm a sucker for you.
Nathaniel, brilliant, brilliant. Let's give him a big hand. Nathaniel, we have a question from Wendy, if you'll take it. She asks, was it hard to choose which song to learn to play and sing? Were there other songs that, it was hard, it looks hard. Were there other songs that you considered as well?
Yes, there were too many.
Oh, there are too many. And how did you pick this one, and how did you make the final decision to pick this one? You sounded great. Luis is clapping still.
All the other songs I tried to play were actually 5 or 4 minutes.
Okay, so you made it a constraint of time.
And after there were 5 other songs I wanted to play that were the same time.
You're awesome, Nathaniel. Thank you so much. I hope you'll do this again. It turns out he is going to do it again. He's on deck. He's on deck tonight for our second virtual open mic, which is exciting. I think this is a great way for us to remain connected. There were about 75 viewers at our virtual open mic, and they stayed on for the whole hour. So we're hoping tonight will be equally. You know, it really makes you realize how much we all miss seeing each other and making music together. So it really is a reminder, right? Sometimes, as I said, we're all working so tirelessly, and to not feel that connection with our students, with the families that we're serving, you know, this is why we do it, right? So it's really great to remain connected in that way.
Perfect. Thanks, Rich. Okay, everybody. So this is one of the videos that's being created by our faculty member. His name's Raphael. His specialization is early childhood music. So he works with younger kids primarily and does a lot of dynamic interactive programming. And so now that we're in this virtual world, we've asked him to develop some videos for us along with a few other music teachers. But we thought this one was really fun and just wanted to share a little bit. I'll share a little bit of it with you. And you can find this on our YouTube channel.
I love to listen to music on my computer or on the radio or on my phone, but I also love to listen to music by going outside and walking around and hearing all the different sounds around me, because those can be like music too. Let's take a sound walk to hear what kind of music that we can hear outside. Before we go, we gotta put on our outside hat, ready to go. Put on our suntan lotion, ready to go. Check. Most importantly, we need our little bag that we're gonna put all the different sounds that we hear into. And finally, we have our telescope to see all around us what kind of sounds we can check out. Are you ready to go? Let's go.
Anyway, that's just a quick little clip of that video. It is about 8 minutes. Really fun. He grabbed more sounds throughout his community. So it's a really great, tailored specifically to younger kids. Our other videos are for different age groups or different approaches and different levels of learning music. So that one's just really fun. I thought we'd share that.
I might also say it finally gives us a glimpse of, like, we're going through, what I'm noticing is since March, we're going through different phases of getting through this, as I think we all are personally, we are as an organization and a group as well going through this. And one of the things that you start to see, I think, in this newer phase that we're in, is a glimmer of that, looking back and reflecting on it, saying, how do we've said it since the beginning, it's an opportunity to connect and build community through the situation that we're in. So the challenge that we're in and we're all faced with, how can we use the tools? Like, I mean, we're online right now with everyone. This is a miracle unto itself, but how can we use the tools that we have in front of us, keeping health as a priority, to come out of this stronger than when we went into it? Like with the fire, I would say that with the fire in 2018, we come out of it stronger. Well, Raf's video is an example of, and engaging with certain kids. Like we'll talk a little bit about our online pilots, and we are starting to see signs and patterns and ways of connecting that are actually, dare I say, and I don't want to say it, but I don't have better language right now to say it, better than the pre-COVID world, right? Like, how can we, and that's a weird thing to say, and I acknowledge it, but how can we actually use some of these tools to connect with communities that we weren't actually able to make that meaningful connection with beforehand? So we're looking at this, and hopefully able to continue reflecting and adapting our plan as we go through it, right? Right.
That video was so impressive, like the innovation. And,
yes.
Like I do photography, and sometimes I do photography walks where you learn to see things in a different way through your camera lens. to not take things for granted, right? A leaf on the ground, if you take a macro, a close-up shot of it, you see all of this wonderful designing and engineering in nature. And so to have an audible like version where you're just appreciating, and also, you know, visual, since he was using that, you know, the scope, it's really
so
engaging.
grassroots, eh? The way he did it, it was so grassroots. Yeah, yeah.
And it was entertaining, very entertaining. So we're seeing the innovation is great. Maybe we can talk a little bit about what you're doing with your pilot project.
Yeah.
And how that went.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we decided to, before jumping into offering every one of our students and our families live lessons, we wanted to pilot it. So we developed a plan to pilot some programs for the summer, which included piloting private lessons, which we do in a regular setting, and also piloting our ensemble classes, so large group classes. And that was the one we were more like, oh, we got a lot to learn around this. How exactly is it gonna function? And how are we gonna make sure that it's super engaging and interactive? So we started off with that, and we did a few weeks of summer pilots with a scaled down group of our faculty. And I think it was a really good learning experience. I don't know if you want to share some of those key learnings, Richard, but yeah, it was super helpful.
No, absolutely. It's just good to know if you feel like even you're on the right track. And that's what really a lot of this connection has been for us, is just constant temperature tests. I mean, we might even have to do those literally, but hopefully not. But constant tests in terms of how are we doing. So having a core group of faculty stay on through the summer to help us figure this out has been really great. And going back to, as I said, some of our partner organizations or similar community music schools in the sector at large has helped us really continue to gain that understanding of, are we on the right track, right? Looking at what the Toronto District School Board are doing as well. Anyone that we can kind of gain some knowledge from in this area, right? It's been so interesting also just seeing the parallel approaches to all of us planning. And as I said earlier, we consider ourselves to be fairly good planners when things are going well, but when things are a little chaotic like this, you do look at it and go, oh, okay, the Toronto District School Board are grappling with some of the same things, obviously on a much larger scale. So yeah, I think the pilots were a smart move to dipping a toe into informing how we move forward with training the faculty at large in September to hopefully bring back virtual lessons, or maybe a mix of in-person lessons with private lessons for the fall. For October is what we're aiming for.
That's amazing. I wonder, are you experiencing any challenges when you're working with partners? Because we've talked about the benefits and sharing knowledge and, you know, that network. What might some challenges be that you've encountered?
I mean, we're facing challenges internally as well. Like we have the Regent Park School of Music Foundation, who we would share our space with when things were normal pre-COVID, who now they do all the fundraising for our school to keep us sustainable and able to continue thriving in this way. And so just aligning with our foundation, making sure that like, what does the next year or two look like from a fundraising standpoint, and keeping our communication as in sync as it needs to be in order to move forward has been a challenge, right? With two separate board of directors, all doing what they each can to keep us moving forward with a raft of challenges. So just internally, it's been a challenge. Then externally, yeah, I mean, the one thing I keep going on, the few things that COVID has provided to us that are a plus are, it has forced us to make many difficult decisions quickly in order to gain. I will say that in some ways, even though it's very chaotic and moving quickly, we've never been a more focused organization. So we've had to really pare down our partnerships, put some of them on hold, to answer your question, and really just focus on bringing back our current lot of 1,000 students in some way, it'll be compromised, but in some way for the upcoming year, and preserving what partnerships absolutely are instrumental right now to doing that in Jane and Finch, Regent Park, and Wandering Spirit, those 3 locations.
Yeah. And I mean, one other thing I just want to point out is working with families that may not have access to devices. I know the school were facing that quite a bit. So that's one thing that also has come up for us is, so do they have a device that they can connect to a live lesson? Do they have a device that's going to connect to the internet? Do they have reliable internet access, or do they have enough bandwidth? We had to consider some of those things as well, because you know, a live video, even from person to person for our private lessons, it uses a lot of your internet bandwidth. So we don't want to be tapping everybody out of their internet if they need it for work or they need it for something else. So there are just some issues around how do we manage that. We realized that if the school had provided a device, that sort of helps us a little bit, but we don't know when the schools are taking them back. We don't know how good those devices are. We don't know if it's going to be something sustainable, right? If they can't come back to in-person lessons or don't, how can we support them in that and make it an effective program, despite some of the, you know, there's lags or whatever. One thing that came up in the pilots is you can't do a choir or like a live jam because everybody's internet speeds are different. So to try and even sing a song together, it's near impossible to have it be successful where everybody starts at the same time, words at the same time. So that's not an effective way of doing it. And the teachers did a pretty good job of trying to adapt and making it sort of, you learn independently, you do some music creation independently, and then they put it together. But that's not ideal, right? We'd love people to be able to live. The beauty of something like a choir is we'd love them to be able to do that all as one. That's what makes those ensembles or group programs so special. So it's not ideal, but they're working with the challenges as they can. So yeah.
Vanessa, you have some photos of some of the pilot programs. Do you want to share those?
Sure. Let me go back to our little PowerPoint here. Let me make this, sorry about that. Let me make it, oh, sorry. Go back in time. It's right here. Oh, so you'll see this photo here is one of our ensemble classes over Zoom. And so they all are saying goodbye. This is their end lesson. This one on the top right here is the jam ensemble. And they just had this cute graphic. I thought it was fun to share that. And then this one below at the bottom was a private lesson. And so you could see when I went and got this image, it was kind of cool because you could see that the teacher on the left-hand side, he was showing, okay, he was demonstrating how to play something, and then the student would play it back for him. So pretty similar to an in-person lesson. And it was really neat to see that one worked really well. So yeah. Couple examples.
We also have at 5:30 on every Friday, we've been doing a live DJ set from on our Instagram at Regent Park Music. So if you guys want to check that out, I'll try to put that in the chat as well. That's been another way of just remaining connected, remaining relevant, building community through some of these live touch points. And then our youth committee have, so kids 13 to 18 have met throughout since March, once a week on Zoom. Some of them don't have video, some of them don't have audio. They just want to be a part of it, you know? And so those are like every one of these examples that we're giving all add up to part of our strategy that we hope will continue to succeed in being a meaningful organization in our kids and in the families that we serve in their lives, right, as we move forward.
Olive asked a question around the the main outcomes for young people. I know, Vanessa, you know, you participated in a webinar that YouthREX hosted, I think it was in December, where we were talking about the impacts of music programming for young people. And I'm wondering if you can speak to the most powerful outcomes. And I don't know if that connects to why you yourself got involved in music education, but if you want to also kind of speak to that too, we didn't have a chance to explore that earlier.
Sure. So we're actually working with YouthREX right now to develop an evaluation plan, because we have been doing a little bit here and there to sort of assess what our outcomes are, but they're not comprehensive, right? So we've been seeing things like young people staying connected with the community. That's something we notice. If they come to us at a younger age, they're more likely to stay with the community for a while. We do notice, again, a lot of it's like qualitative or observational information we're gathering, but things like young people gaining self-confidence, young people using RPSM as their safe space, you know, giving those supports to those individuals, I found really inspiring to see at RPSM. So we do have young people that we come across who have some really unfortunate life experiences, and music is their outlet. Music is their, you know, it's a little bit of an inspiration for them to be themselves. And so just anecdotally, I find building confidence, feeling a sense of community, feeling a sense of connection, which does relate to my entry point into RPSM. So I actually have done youth work. That's been my career, is doing youth work and youth program and development stuff, and some research. And then I was in a choir, a community choir myself, and the director knew my experience and said, you know what, even if you do it part-time, you should get hooked up with this Regent Park School of Music. They're doing some really cool stuff. I think you'd like them. And so I kind of started just supporting the choir in the Jane and Finch location. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is pretty inspiring. And then ended up getting a job and working as the program manager here in our Jane and Finch site, because music did that for me too. As a young person, music was sort of my outlet. I sang in choirs my whole life. I took voice lessons. It was what kept me afloat, and I think it made me the person I am today. So, you know, music isn't my career. I'm not a professional music educator. I'm not a professional musician. I love it. You know, I've been in choirs my whole life and sung in musicals, and I still do stuff like that because it gives me joy and gives me a connection to my community, a different community of like-minded folks. And it's, it's been really good to be able to see it on a couple different angles, right? From a personal perspective and then from a career perspective for the communities we work with.
And just seeing Vanessa's trajectory over the last 5 years of impact has been just fun to be a part of. And I think it's a lot of our success, much of it out in the Jane Finch neighborhood over the last 5 years of Vanessa being out there and building that, is building trust in that community and growing. And that, I think, has been instrumental to how we've remained relevant out there. So there's one other thing I picked up on the social outcomes and musical outcomes. One of our graduates, Charlotte, recently graduated from the U of T. She's a young Black singer, opera singer, and wants to see more change in representation in the opera world and at the U of T Faculty of Music. And so we've been having some really interesting dialogues and being part of this larger dialogue and movement, helping play our role of connecting with community and music education and developing an action plan around anti-oppression and anti-Black racism at our school. So that's been, she remains, she's done a master's right now in voice. She remains part of our development. And I love to see that. And so it's continuing those kind of dialogues with our students, that they have that ownership over helping us move the organization forward together as we work through this.
Thank you for that. we have a few minutes left and some really great questions that came in. And there was a part 2 to that question around evaluation.
Yes.
It was asking about Indigenous participants and if they're using the same instruments and music as others in the group. And it ties into a question from Tanika again, asking about how your organization is working to meet the needs of students that have greater social barriers that they're coming across. I know we did a workshop with Regent Park School of Music around anti-oppression as YouthREX a little while ago, but maybe you can talk about specifically how you're addressing the needs of Indigenous participants and others who may be facing systemic barriers.
One of the things we've been doing over the last, we've been with Wandering Spirit now for over 4 years and have been a pillar at that school. They are using the same instruments as some of our other groups, but we're really tailoring it to their request, really, and trying to move along with them. So if it is an interest, as Vanessa said earlier, around Royal Conservatory, sure. But if it's an interest in jazz or hip hop or wherever they would like to go with their music education, we want to try to go there with them. We've been a really important partnership. That whole work that we're doing with Wandering Spirit has been great learning for both organizations. We also are running an Indigenous drum circle at our school. We were pre-COVID, and it's continued online. An Indigenous women's drumming group that we helped launch and continue to support where possible. I'm not sure its fate in the coming year, but we are trying to keep in touch because that's been really important work too. So around access to musical instruments and barriers on that end, comes down, Cyril, to student by student, and we're really taking that approach. Whatever the needs of that student are, whether it be social or musical or both, we are doing our very best to tailor it to that individual. And so that could look like sending a turntable home to a student. That could look like, in the pre-COVID world, offering a ride to and from a lesson. We had board members that were doing that to try to remove that barrier. All of the above to try to make that difference in remaining connected with the kid, with whoever the child is. Yeah.
Yeah, and from a bigger perspective, we've tried to do some things systemically in our organization to really encourage and support youth, again, where they are and the unique interests and needs in their communities. So we always do a Black History recital, and we've learned some great lessons from that. So how do we support faculty? So we've given training around how do you find repertoire that works with the students' backgrounds and interests, right? How do you really get music that connects them to culture or their family history or whatever works for them, their community. So trying to encourage and support faculty members to do that. And we do it as best as we can, right? So it is something we're constantly thinking about, because we don't want music learning to be siloed or something that's just, often music learning can fall into this very westernized approach, and that doesn't work for everybody. And for some, it's perfect. For a lot, it's not. And so we try and really disrupt that as much as we can and find ways to make it successful. So maybe learning a Korean pop song is what you do in your voice lesson. And that's beautiful and great in its own way, right? You are still learning so much from that experience, and maybe building a connection to your family or your cultural history in some way that you wouldn't have in another setting. So yeah, we try and support those opportunities as well.
Thank you both so much. I noticed that we've come to the end of our time together, but we know that there's still so much more to engage with, to talk about. And I'm going to turn it over to Cyril. For folks who are able to stay with us just for a few minutes, and I completely failed to mention this at the outset, but we are launching today an online platform for sector stakeholders to have conversations like the one we had today online. So I'm going to turn it over to Cyril, who's going to share that with folks who are able to stay for a minute or two, and we'll keep this conversation going in that space as well.
Great, thanks so much. I'm so excited that we're going to be launching the virtual community of practice day, which we call the virtual cafe. We are going to be following up with everybody with an email that will give you the link that will connect you with our getting started guideline. And all of you will be our first participants. This is not necessarily our larger public launch. This is actually what we're calling a soft launch, just following our pilot series. And so it's going to be all the participants that have been in conversation with us for the last few weeks. You will be the special guests for our virtual community. So we will be sending that email shortly. And I look forward to meeting you there so that we can continue this conversation and many others. With this platform, you're also able to create your own user account. So you can add other people as friends. You can follow other people's pages. You can have your own profile. So it's also a bit of a networking tool in addition to being a place where we can continue these conversations and access resources, being able to post videos, photos, documents. So we've been working on this for a long time, and your feedback is going to be really great to fine tune it. So please look out for that. And also remember, just quickly, we do have our Skill Up Sampler courses at youthrex.com. So if you're interested in some more professional capacity building, those are available to the end of the month. The end of the month, they're going to be offline. So check that out if you have the time.
Great, thank you. Thanks again, Richard and Vanessa. Thanks for sharing with us today. Thank you to everyone who shared space with us, shared questions. And as I said, we're taking a little bit of a break from this series. We have a special In Conversation coming up on August 26th, talking about youth mental health. And then our Reimagining Youth Work in the COVID-19 Era series will return in September. So we look forward to seeing you. Take care, everyone, and have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks.